Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give everyone just a couple more minutes to enter our lobby, and then we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Maximizing Microsoft 365 Efficiency with Copilot, brought to you by Datalink Networks, TD SYNNEX, and Microsoft. Before we get started, I will go over some quick housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded, and you will receive a copy of the recording following the call. Cameras and microphones will be kept off during the duration of the webinar. We will also be doing Q&A at the end, so please use our chat feature to ask any questions you may have for our speakers. We have a great presentation in store for you where you will see Copilot in action. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Don Wisdom, President of Datalink Networks, and he's going to kick us off.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are very, very pleased to have you attend this very important webinar, and Datalink Networks is very proud to be leading the Copilot revolution with TD SYNNEX and Microsoft. Datalink Networks is a national managed service provider. We specialize in cloud, security, networking, and data center technologies. We have an engineering bench of highly skilled engineers that are Microsoft certified, and we've been in business for over 35 years. So we're looking forward to giving you some great information on Copilot and on Microsoft AI today, and we have a special offer at the end. But before we do anything further, I'd like to turn this over to Andrew, who will be our presenter today. Andrew, take it away.
Thank you very much, Don and Amanda. It's great to be a part of this occasion. We're going to spend the next few moments, I can't say minutes because it's a little bit more than a few, but the next few moments focused on Microsoft and in particular, Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. And my area of focus, so I'm a business development executive focused exclusively on Microsoft Cloud. And their cloud practice actually is broken into 6 segments. One of those segments happens to be called Modern Work. Modern Work includes products like Microsoft 365, Office 365, and in particular, Copilot for Microsoft 365. So I have a lot of content that I am looking forward to being able to share with you this afternoon. The agenda is what you see before you right now. And really, we can boil that down to simplify it and say that it's going to be a discussion, an interaction, a presentation about the value of Copilot for Microsoft 365, AI in general, but in more specific terms, all about Copilot, what this thing is, and why it matters, and hopefully why you will find it to be something that is relevant to your business. So in broad terms, let's start this way. SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, rapidly adopting AI, artificial intelligence. And so the question is, are you already implementing or have you already integrated artificial intelligence into your business? Perhaps you have not, in which case then maybe you are contemplating doing something like that and just wondering how to do it. Maybe you're not even aware that you've got AI working in your business already, and I say that because maybe your employees are working with something like ChatGPT or one of the other chatbots. That's artificial intelligence. And so you could say in an indirect fashion that that's a part of your day-to-day work processes. But it is a technology that's here to stay. The train has left the station. And so it's going to be important and incumbent upon you as a business to have a long discussion or maybe a brief one to determine how you're going to work with this thing on a go-forward basis. So here's a couple of things to keep in mind, right? You're going to want to grow your business. what that business happens to be. And this applies, by the way, to nonprofit organizations. And this also applies to those in the education space. When I say nonprofit, I'm talking about public sector. This applies to government. It applies to pretty much everyone who is running, managing, operating a business. Decisions that need to be made. AI trends for SMB, to give you some ideas. You may be aware of these things already, but food for thought, things to consider that maybe didn't enter into your thought process as yet. Strategic planning, and they're in random order, quite frankly, but strategic planning, customer centricity, making it focused and centered around your customers, whoever they may be. Your users, your attendees, effective financial management, and you can see the other bullet points there. Cybersecurity, point number 4, can't forget about that. Obviously, that's relevant whether we're talking about AI or not. And as you heard off the top, you will get a copy of these slides as well. So have no fear if you don't have an opportunity to read every single word, but really it's just to make you aware of the different topics, the subject matter that comes into play when looking at where AI is going to fit into how you do your business, how you run your business, how it's going to affect how you run your business and the customers that you work with. Or again, maybe they're not customers. If you're in a nonprofit space, you wouldn't call them customers, but your volunteers and the communities that they work within. Most impacted businesses or business areas, specific now to Copilot for Microsoft 365. So McKinsey Research Organization, there's a link in the lower left-hand corner where you can take a look at this information in more detail, but generative AI has the potential to impact productivity and contribute between 1.7 to 2.9%. And it's mainly across these segments of the business that you see, or of the market, right? Sales and marketing is number 1, and that's on purpose because if there is a segment that's driving the use and adoption of AI, and more specifically something like Copilot for Microsoft 365, it is the sales and marketing organizations, those people who are managing or working within those groups. Finance is another one. Anything that helps to automate the work that needs to be done when it comes to forecasting, things like that. And then there's also human resources, right? HR, an important area of the business. Maybe your organization is large enough that you've got segmented divisions where you have an individual assigned to run these groups and you have people reporting into those individuals. On the other hand, maybe you have someone who wears multiple hats, right? You have someone who actually runs and is responsible for sales and marketing. Maybe you have someone that's responsible for finance and marketing, or human resources and finance. Who knows what that mix looks like, but regardless of whether it's someone who in an organization that's large enough where they can afford to just be responsible for one area of the business, or small enough that you have someone who's responsible for multiple areas of the business, integrating AI technology, something that will allow the job to be done even more efficiently and more quickly, where productivity sees an increase, collaboration even sees an increase. Anything that has a positive outcome for business, that's where you're going to want to focus your attention. How is it going to help me in the way that I do business, in the way that we do business, so that we remain competitive or even become more competitive? AI has the potential to help you do that. And Copilot for Microsoft 365 is just a sliver of the AI discussion. And it is yet a very important small piece of that pie. And I see there's a, okay. If you have questions or comments, you can certainly type those into the chat, but there will be time at the end when we can go back over this and have some discussions, and I'd be happy to do that. And so just to bring all of that together for the moment, what I've just been talking about, business value from an employee-centric perspective, that's something that you may want to look at. You can look at how AI is going to affect your business company-wide in terms of addressing issues that are impactful and that are going to resonate across the business. Company goals, strategy, and culture are dependent on things like what you see there on the left-hand side, technology adoption, market position, et cetera. But you can also look at this from an employee-centric perspective. That's what you would have seen in the agenda earlier when it said employee centricity. So employee centricity, or making this an opportunity to see how you can positively impact the work habits and production of your employees based on how they interact and how they are using Microsoft 365. Because this is about how people can get their work done better and more effectively using Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, and all of the apps that you're accustomed to using and working with in Microsoft 365. And that includes Office 365 as well. So from an employee-centric standpoint, with the employee experience, now that's something that's dependent, as you can see on the right side, on skill development, job security, productivity, and you can see the rest of the points that are there in the list. So taking an employee-centric perspective means that business value needs to be aligned with and supported by clear and pragmatic employee-driven use cases. So you can come at this from any number of ways. At the end of the day, is it and will it show dividends in terms of how your business is going to be able to perform? Reasonable question, important question, and Copilot for Microsoft 365 will help with answers to that question. This is a bit of an eye chart. And so, if you've got your reading glasses on and you're able to see this effectively, great. If maybe you're not old enough to have reading glasses yet, but it's still difficult for you, don't worry. You're going to get a copy of this deck. You'll be able to look at this in more detail. But basically, two things that are covered here in this, and this is why I wanted to share it, even though it's a little difficult to read. The first point, if you look in the main part of this slide here, right here in the middle, if you could make any changes to your work experience, this is the question that was asked to a survey audience. Microsoft did a lot of research, lots of surveys, lots of polling to really get a good understanding of how businesses and how users feel about working with Copilot for Microsoft 365. And one of the questions was, if you could make any changes to your work experience without any additional effort required on your part, which would you value the most? And this is how people responded, what you see here. Now, I'll just call out this one point, top of the list, time saving. And that becomes very apparent after you see a couple of examples that I show you here. And I think you would find that anyway, if you're a person that uses ChatGPT. And that's not a bad word, by the way, because ChatGPT is a product of OpenAI. That's a research organization. OpenAI and Microsoft have a very, very, very close and tight bond, a very close relationship. Microsoft invests millions of dollars into OpenAI, but they are separate entities. They're not the same company. All right, just thought I would throw that in there. But if you're accustomed to using something like ChatGPT or one of the other AI technologies that are out there, one of the things I'm sure you would have noticed is that you get answers pretty quickly and you can get to the end of job or the end of whatever the project is, or you can get to the end of resolving a particular question very quickly. That is one of the most obvious benefits and advantages of using AI. And so time saving, no surprise there, is one of the biggest things that are appreciated when it comes to working with Copilot. And then you can also see here about being able to work smarter and all of the other points that are here. Even I have to look a little bit closer there on that one. All right, so you can see the other points that are here, but that really, these results are as a result of the question that was asked. If without any additional effort on your part, which would you value the most in terms of changes to your work experience? Saving time apparently is the most valuable. Maybe you share that same feeling as well. The next point on this slide as well, in your current day-to-day role, rank the following based on how disruptive they are to your productivity. And so that's what we get over here. And so the most disruptive apparently is inefficient meetings or lack of clear goals. And the other points that are here, too many meetings, uninspired employees, and information is hard to find. This one I find very interesting as well. Point number 3, too many meetings. I don't think that was the case prior to the pandemic. But when that hit, everyone went home, working remotely, and just because of convenience, I suppose, more and more meetings started happening because it was very simple. Just put something in someone's calendar and you're already a captured audience, so to speak, because you're in your home office, and presto changeo, we've got more meetings happening. But hopefully this is information that you'll take a look at in the coming days or weeks, or the time that you have to review this slide deck, and that will also give you some additional things to consider. So to round out this segment, AI, artificial intelligence, that's the broad initiative, if you will, right? Copilot for Microsoft 365 is a part of that. ChatGPT is a part of that, but there's so many other things happening. If you are watching the news, you see now there's reports that there's generative AI that you can use to create, allow things like the Mona Lisa to be able to speak, right? Make the lips move, and there's all other kinds of technology we won't need to get into here. But because of that, what are your organization's goals for using any of this technology? What are your organization's pain points that AI can address? Right? What are your organization's current capabilities? Data strategy that has to be looked at, infrastructure and resources. All of these things, or at least as many as possible, are things that you want to take a look at. If you've already started down that path, especially if you're working closely with Datalink, then good on you. Continue down that path. You're more advanced than many businesses today. This is going to be a long haul in terms of the motion of business getting onboarded with AI technology. It's not going to happen overnight, but there are things that you need to look at. You do need to have a good partner to do that. And so you're in a good spot doing that with Datalink and partnering with them. So what is Copilot for Microsoft 365? With all that being said, it is generative AI. Generative AI is a subset of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a science, which is the science of creating machines that, I'll just say in simple terms, have the ability to mimic or imitate human capabilities, right? They can reason, they can make decisions, they can perceive, and the list goes on and on. They just have human capabilities. Artificial intelligence. Generative AI speaks to the ability to of machines to learn from existing data and patterns. So these are things that can create things like text, images, audio, video, codes, and all of that. So what am I getting at here? This is Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is an AI-powered digital assistant. It's designed to work with you as you work with your Microsoft 365 apps. As you're working in Word, you've got AI-powered technology integrated into that. So now instead of you having to type things out manually, as we've always done for decades and decades, you're just going to tell Copilot what it is you want, and it will do it for you. I'll show you a couple of examples of that. But that is Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. Microsoft Copilot is the AI technology for Microsoft 365, which are what we used to call Office apps. We now call them Microsoft 365 apps, but that's the sense that that description makes. Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. There are all kinds of Copilots. More Copilots are coming. There are Copilots that are in testing right now. Microsoft has made it plain that they are the Copilot company. We should fully expect to see Copilots from now into who knows how far the future goes. So just something that I would ask you to prepare for and be ready for. Let me show you a couple of examples, or a few examples of Copilot in action. Keep in mind, the subscription is Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's an add-on subscription, so you need to have the appropriate base license for it to work. It won't work by itself. So you'll need a license such as Microsoft 365 Business Basic, Microsoft 365 Business Standard or Business Premium, or you can also have Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. You can have Office 365 E1, E3, or E5. Or if you're in the education space and you order Microsoft Education or Academic SKUs, then those would include the A3 and the A5 licenses. And it also includes the F1 and F3. If that sounds like a lot, that's okay. Basically what it means is it's very difficult for a customer to not have the appropriate license, although it's possible. And in those cases, if you don't have the appropriate license that allows you to add Copilot for Microsoft 365, have no fear. Your Datalink representative will be able to sort you out when it comes to that. If you have an on-prem license, like an Office 2021 or an Office 2019 or an Office 2016, or God forbid, something older than that that's outdated, whether you have the old or the new of the Office license, it's an on-prem license, it's not a cloud license. You need to get yourselves onto a Microsoft 365 cloud license. That qualifies you to have Copilot for Microsoft 365. All right. It's quite likely you'll have some questions about that later, and I invite you to ask about that. But let me get to this. I'm going to show you, I'm going to share a different screen first of all. I'm going to show you this example of Copilot in Outlook. So if you have the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, here is an example of what you'll be able to do in Outlook.
So I just got added to a new project at work, and whoa, this is a long email thread. I'm going to click Summary up top here, and Copilot is going to scan and summarize the key points. And there we go, with citations too. I'll click this one and write to the email for more context. I see this new designer we hired. Let's introduce ourselves. I'll open a new mail and start a draft with Copilot using the / key. A meeting to discuss the project. And go. Okay, nice. I'm also going to try changing the tone here to casual. And regenerate. Cool. I'll touch it up a bit. Whew. And that's what you can do with Copilot.
All right, so that's just one example, but hopefully it's already giving you an idea of what this is all about. If you're accustomed to using ChatGPT or something similar, fantastic. That's great. The distinction, or one of the distinctions between Copilot for Microsoft 365 and what you can do with ChatGPT, because maybe you're happy using that, right? Maybe you're using the free version, or maybe as a business, you are paying the $20 per user per month to get ChatGPT Plus. Fantastic, very powerful tool, and people love it. I would even go as far as to say that ChatGPT has done a lot to really bring AI into the mainstream. I mean, they're using it in schools, they're using it in most places because it's just become that popular. However, if you are a Microsoft 365 user, and within your company, your organization, within your community, you're working with Microsoft 365. That is the default collaboration and productivity suite that you have. You're working in Word, you're working in Outlook, you're working in Teams and other things like that. That's a protected Microsoft environment. It's protected, it's private, that's how it's set up, that's what Microsoft commits to. You may have known that, you may not have even been aware of that, but that's the reality of having a Microsoft 365 subscription, protected environment. But now what you're doing, you're working with sensitive data, whatever that happens to be, company data, maybe proprietary data, maybe some forecasting information in an Excel file, whatever the case might be. You now want to leverage ChatGPT or something like a ChatGPT. I don't want to be beating up on ChatGPT, but that or something similar, that's a public forum. And you want to use the power of that tool to help you complete whatever the work is that you're doing. So you're now going to cut and paste from a private environment into a public environment where the security is you don't know what, right? And it's not to say that every time you do that, that your data is going to be stolen. Someone's going to reach out and grab that and use it for nefarious purposes. But the potential is now a very real one. The risk has increased substantially. That doesn't exist if you're using AI technology that is within your Microsoft environment. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 is AI embedded technology that integrates automatically with your Microsoft 365 apps. So now you are using AI within your protected Microsoft environment. There's no need to be cutting and pasting into a public environment where your data and information is now exposed. Also, as fantastic as these other third-party options are, you don't know for sure if your data is actually being used to train their models for their own consumption and for their own data mining purposes and things like that. Copilot from Microsoft 365 removes all of that. You're within the Microsoft environment, it's protected, your data is secure, and you can sleep better at night. So that's one of the things that I would ask that you consider. There is no integration with ChatGPT directly into Microsoft, likewise with any of the other third-party options, but there is direct integration with your Microsoft 365 apps if you are using Copilot from Microsoft 365. All right, so let me continue. You've seen an example of Copilot in Outlook. Let me now show you an example of Copilot and how it works, how it could work for you in Excel. So I'm anticipating that that in particular would be of great appeal to people who spend their days in numbers, crunching numbers, forecasting, doing reports in Excel, most if not all of the time. This isn't going to remove you from your work or take your job from you. This is actually going to enhance what you're going to be able to do. Keep this in mind. Copilot for Microsoft 365 is a Copilot solution. It is not an autopilot. Anything that you ask it to do, it is going to do based on what data is available to it. And again, that's all of the data that is accessible to you in your Microsoft tenant or relative to your Microsoft license. So that means any of your individual content, any of your business content. It's just working with that. And when you make a request, when you type out your prompt, because that's really what they're called prompts, your prompt is submitted, Copilot receives that, it interprets the meaning behind it as to what it is you're actually asking for, and then it crafts an answer based on the data that's available to it, and then it provides you with that information. But once you have that information and you're satisfied with the response that you have, well, what happens now? Well, Copilot isn't going to do anything else with it. If you need to share that with someone or send it to somebody, put it in a presentation or who knows what, post it somewhere, you have to do that. Copilot is not going to do anything like that. It is just a tool, a resource that will allow you to get your work done more quickly, more efficiently, and in a way that allows you to come across as even more creative. And so in this scenario with Excel, the way that it's going to work in there, it's going to have access to all the tools that are already there in Excel. You just have to say, I need this, this, and this done, or do this, make changes to this, whatever it is, rather than you doing it yourself. You tell Copilot to do it, and it's going to leverage all of the tools and features that exist in Excel, and this applies to all of the other apps too, by the way. So if there are pivot tables that need to be done or anything like that, it'll just know to do that. You can say to create something with a pivot table, but even if you don't, if the output makes sense in a pivot table view, it will do that for you. So that's the great thing about Copilot for Microsoft 365 and how it will work in Excel. Let me show you this other example of Copilot in Microsoft Teams. Now, I think that's a fantastic feature if you have Microsoft 365. If perhaps you're using something other than Microsoft 365, I'm hopeful that even what you're seeing and hearing today will cause you to maybe rethink that, or at least have a conversation with Datalink to find out more about Microsoft 365, especially this thing called Teams. Because Teams, even without Copilot, is what we're using today, and is a fantastic feature for the examples that you saw there. Collaboration, great platform for communication, and even just overall project management. But that's one of the additional features now when you do have Copilot for Microsoft 365 integrated with Teams, some additional things that you'll be able to benefit from there. One other thing that I would like to share with you is an example of Copilot in Microsoft 365 chat. Now this, to me, is even more so than anything else, a real game changer. And the reason is this. I've given you a couple of examples just to whet your appetite of how Copilot integrates with things like Excel, how Copilot integrates with things like Outlook. This that you're going to see now, the chat feature, works across all of the apps. So it doesn't integrate with just one app. And that makes it super powerful. And the reason is because since it's now going to access information across all of your apps, your calendar, meetings, you'll hear the examples in the demo in just a moment. You can actually start here, right? By opening up Teams, it's available in some other places as well. But if you go into Teams and you click on the Copilot button, you can then begin your chat interaction and start asking Copilot to do whatever it is that needs to be done. And it's not going to limit itself just to a particular app. It'll compile that data and produce an output that is really quite incredible. So let me stop talking about it here and allow you to see this demo. And I think it will really give you a good sense and context of what this is all about. Yeah, I kind of think so, and I'm hopeful that some of you, as you are watching these demos and hearing the info that I'm sharing, um, agree or are leaning in that direction, and it's quite okay if you still have some concerns. I see there were a couple of questions asked, and actually it fits with where I'm going right now. One of the questions is, some people may find Copilot to be invasive. Are there any legal applications here? Do we need release forms? Fantastic question. And the other question is, would you not customize Copilot programming to work most efficiently with an enterprise instead of just using it as it is? That's another great question. So the first one, do you need release forms? Are there any legal legal implications? That's what I'm trying to say with any of this. So, I mean, I guess I can say there are always legal implications, but let me just share some info with you about this. I don't think I included a slide for that, but that's okay. I'll speak to it. Microsoft has made the statement and have said in writing, let me do this. I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment, or actually I will share over here, and I'm just going to bring something over so you can actually see what it is I'm talking about. So having to do with copyright or customer copyright commitment, here's what Microsoft has to say on that topic. Basically, they're going to assume responsibility for the potential legal risks involved with using, so in general, AI technology, but specifically Copilot for Microsoft 365. And the link at the bottom here will take you to a Microsoft site to validate what it is I'm sharing with you and telling you and trying to explain. So hopefully that answers that question. There are no forms that you are required or that Microsoft says need to be signed or things like that. When you purchase the license, the expectation is that you're going to use it to help you get your work done. If the output happens to be something that includes copyright material, and the owner of that copyright, recognizes that and pulls up on you and says, "Hey, listen, cease and desist," or whatever the case might be, then that's a conversation now that you would have with Microsoft, and this is the comment that they've made and that they fully intend to stand by. So hopefully that answers your question there. Let me get back to where I was just now. The other thing that I want to call out here as well is that on the subject of output and what we can expect to see when using something like Copilot for Microsoft 365. Let me just share this again. Question that hasn't come up yet that I'm sure will come up, and reasonably so, is what about the information that it does spit out? How accurate is this thing? If you use ChatGPT, they have a disclaimer. It says, listen, AI technology can produce incorrect answers. Basically, check your work. I'm paraphrasing, but the disclaimer is there. Microsoft likewise has one as well. And so they don't hide behind anything either. The moral of the story is this. Remember when you were in public school or even in high school? I remember this especially in math class. Before you hand in your work, make sure you check it. So thank goodness we had that exercise. So now you can cut and paste that experience into using AI technology. And what I'm saying is, remember that in using this Copilot for Microsoft 365 or any other AI technology, check the output before you share it with anybody. That's all you would need to remember. I have no doubt that all organizations are working to ensure that the outputs are 100% correct every time, but they're not there yet. And I think it's positive that they call that out and are upfront about that. So I'm hopeful that that helps to answer those questions. Now, let me get back to this other deck that I'm working from, which is right here. Just give me a few seconds. I don't see any other questions. I hope that they answered those. Just going to share once again and keep moving forward. I hope this has been useful thus far. All right, so the next thing I want to share with you now, still along the lines of security, this having to do with data security. There's a lot to be said about the usefulness and the effectiveness of Copilot for Microsoft 365, how it can add value. I'll get into that a little bit more, but you do need to also make sure that you are having in parallel a conversation about data governance. Data governance, it's a big phrase, big expression. If you don't know what that means, simply put, make sure that you actually are able to account for all of the data that you have from using your Microsoft 365. All of your data, individual data for everyone in the organization, and company data. Where is it? How is it being stored? How is it being used? You need to be able to account for all of that. Datalink can have that conversation with you, no problem. But the reason is that once you account for all of it, you need to then determine, okay, which or what, how much of this data is sensitive? I'll roll with that. How much of this data needs to have special protections? How much of this data can we say is public? And how much of this data can we actually delete? You need to have that kind of an audit process and ask those questions and address that, because you need to apply the appropriate permissions around that data to protect it. You need to apply the appropriate restrictions so that people who are supposed to have access to financial data, who are supposed to have access to sensitive HR data, make sure that they have the permissions in place that allow that. Conversely, people who are not supposed to see that data, you need to make sure that the appropriate restrictions are in place. Because when you roll out something like Copilot for Microsoft 365 or any other type of AI technology, it feeds off of data. AI is about data, right? It learns from data. Therefore, you need to make sure that, for example, if I'm using Copilot, I'm asking it to do something, help me to get some job done. If it understands my question, it's going to go out, and any data it's allowed to have access to is going to look through that data as a means of compiling the answer that I need to see. And if it has access to credit card numbers and birth dates and things like that, that's not good, especially if I'm not supposed to see it. And that's not going to be the fault of the technology, right? It's not the fault of any of the technology. It's just working within the parameters it has. So you need to make sure that the parameters that are in place are appropriate per user. And if you do that, here's how great things are going to work. right? So that's an assurance, or those are assurances that you can have that Copilot for Microsoft 365 will not work as if it's a rogue technology. It is going to respect your security setup. It's going to inherit all of your security, privacy, identity, and compliance policies. But that is on each business to make sure that they have those things in place. With those things in place, you will have a very, very happy experience, a rewarding experience even from using something like Copilot from Microsoft 365. But please keep this in mind. The takeaway here is that it's not just a Microsoft requirement. This is an AI requirement, regardless of what solution or service you choose to integrate with within your companies and organizations. You need to take care of your data and identities. All right, let me just see here. There's some questions. Does Copilot work with platforms that have other cloud platforms? Good question. Copilot for Microsoft 365, first off, works exclusively with your Microsoft 365 data out of the box. All right. Now you decide, oh, this is great. I'd love to extend its capabilities so that it will also include data from other sources. It can do that. It will do that, but that requires the creation of what we would call a plugin, or there is also something called a graph connector. In either instance, their role, their purpose is to allow for Copilot for Microsoft 365 to work with external data or data external to your Microsoft, I'll say base, just to keep things as non-technical as possible. So the answer to the question, does Copilot work with platforms that have other cloud platforms? Yes. Now, there is one other here. I have Copilot Pro. Will that connect to my Outlook, Teams, etc.? Yes, it will. However, that depends which Outlook and Teams you're talking about. And the reason I say that is this. Copilot for Microsoft 365 is designed for business use. It's designed to work with business applications. And examples, again, would be things like Microsoft 365 Business Premium or Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, something like that. Copilot Pro, if I understand the question correctly, that's the one where you're paying, I believe it's $20 per user per month. Copilot Pro is for non-business use in that in order for it to integrate with the apps, you have to have Microsoft Family Edition or Microsoft Personal Edition. Those are not designed for business use. So that's the difference. Copilot Pro gets you part of the way, but not all of the way. If you want to use it for business, or if you want the features and functionality for business, it has to be Copilot for Microsoft 365. So why it matters, challenges and impacts, why does this deserve your attention? Tried to capture this in one slide. I have more, and I'll talk to those, but maybe this is a good summary slide for you to help you have everything in one place and to have it make sense, right? This is transformative technology. AI is transformative. Generative AI is transformative, and Copilot for Microsoft 365 is a version of generative AI, as ChatGPT is, and things like that. I'm not overly technical, so that's why I'm not getting into the weeds where those things are concerned. My background is in sales, and that's why this is a decidedly user-focused discussion and presentation, just to help you get your head around the use cases and the value of it and how you would use it and why you ought to use it. So it is transformative. And SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, operate by integrating cutting-edge AI capabilities directly into their workforce. or it's transforming you to do that. So what's in it for you? Time savings, number one. There is and will be time savings as you work within the Microsoft 365 apps. Hopefully you got a sense of that when you saw the example of Copilot in Excel. Hopefully you saw an example of that in Outlook. Can you imagine? You come back from vacation. And I don't know about you, but I do have hundreds of emails waiting for me when I come back from time away, from holiday. I was away for 2 weeks in March. And what do you think I came back to see? Because I didn't open my laptop for those 2 weeks. That was my vacation. So enough said there. But once I got back anyway, I had hundreds of email waiting for me. And yes, I say, well, this is a great opportunity to try this Copilot in Outlook and see what it can do. And it did a really, really great job, because I was able to say things like, give me a list of all of my unopened email from my boss. I was able to specify, and it gave me a list of the emails that were unopened, but just those that were sent to me from my boss. So I was able to deal with those first, and I was able to do prioritization. And so that's an example of things that you'll be able to do with something like Copilot for Microsoft 365. Time saving, security. I touched on this before. You don't have to worry now, especially if you're a business owner or a person who works with sensitive data. You don't have to worry now as you're cutting and pasting stuff from your secure Microsoft environment into a public, open, at-risk environment. That goes away. You don't have to do that anymore. You just throw that away. Copilot for Microsoft 365 addresses that issue and concern. Enhanced productivity, collaboration, scalability, all of these things that you'll be able to take a look at and consider in more detail. Here's a stat. If you are a person who just devours stats and data and you find it especially helpful in understanding and quantifying the value of onboarding new technology, then I encourage you to go to this slide once you have the deck. There are a couple of links at the bottom that will take you to some sites that reveal a whole lot more data, results from Microsoft research that they've done with early adopters and early users of Copilot for Microsoft 365. But this is just a snapshot, a smidgen of the type of results that they were able to obtain. On the left side, life before Copilot for Microsoft 365. On the right, life after Copilot for Microsoft 365. I especially like this stat point right here. 77% of respondents said that they didn't want to give Copilot up. Now they had it, they didn't want to give it up, and I don't know. Hopefully it didn't mean that they were willing to, fight, but still, there's a lot of good information there that you can take a look at to help you in your decision-making process. Now, on the one hand, there's the company goals, strategy, and culture, while on the other hand, there's the employee experiences, which I touched on earlier, and employee-centric viewpoint. And maybe the place to begin right now is with an employee-centric view, or I should say, let's continue with that, an employee-centric approach. So here we have 5 possible areas for your consideration. And again, acknowledging that smaller organizations may have one person doing multiple things, and that's okay. It doesn't change the fact that each experience is going to value Copilot for Microsoft 365 in a different way, or maybe the same way, but it's all relative to how much work they do in the various apps over the course of a day. So how could Copilot be helpful with their day-to-day jobs and how they get their work done with the Microsoft 365 apps? And so just as a for instance, and we won't go through this line by line, just make the screen larger for myself. Key trends and challenges. All right. Looking first at sales. If you're in a sales capacity or you are a business development person in that type of a role. Key trends and challenges, 1/3 of sales and sales operations tasks can be readily automated, right? So automation, center of excellence, if you want to build and develop something like that, or maybe just in working with Datalink, maybe they can find a demo environment type setting where you can test some things out. But that's one of the stats that presents an area where there are trends and some challenges. Down at the bottom, boosting sales results, identify potential leads, segmented audiences, and personalized marketing efforts. Off to the right side, you can see how this actually should work, giving you some ideas of capabilities that you can leverage to overcome those challenges. Automating sales processes, you might take a look at using something like PowerPoint. Guiding sales reps in real time, things like Outlook, Word, and using Teams for video conferencing and meetings. Using the apps doesn't have to change from how you're using them today necessarily. This is more about, all right, we're using them. We like how we're using them. We like the apps, but is there a way to allow us to use these apps more effectively and to automate some of those processes so we can effectively get more work done and become more productive? And the answer is yes, there are ways to do that. And in so doing, also overcoming some of the trends or some of the challenges that you may face in something like sales. Similar idea for marketing, right? Escalating expectations related to sustainability and safety and some of these other things. These are things that are poised to permanently, change how marketers do their marketing. So customer expectations, presenting some challenges, brand awareness, and content creation. Some new challenges coming up there. All right, so are there ways that Copilot could help address these things? Without Copilot, things that you would need to address. Copilot can help you to do that more effectively, boosting productivity and creativity. So we look at things like this. So once again, it's the same apps, but now these are apps that have Copilot from Microsoft 365 embedded, so you can get to end of job more quickly. You can afford to actually start something from scratch. You may have templates that you work from, and the templates allow you to get things done quickly, no doubt. But as fast as you think that is, Copilot will allow you to do it even faster. So that's why I say you can actually afford to do things from scratch. And if you don't want to, you can leverage those templates, work with those templates in Copilot, or allow Copilot to work and make edits and customizations to those templates. Still very fast, very quick. It's just necessary for you to review the content and the results and then move forward with it. Think about the possibility of creating a campaign, right? If you are in marketing or you're a part of a nonprofit organization, you have to come up with campaigns on various occasions to promote different ideas and services. Copilot for Microsoft 365, test it, try it. Just say Copilot, create a campaign, let Copilot know exactly what needs to be included, and then sit back and watch how it works. For finance, key trends and challenges, advanced data insights, evolved automation, right? Prices based on real-time market conditions, demand, and supply. Keeping up to date with those things, keeping on track. I mean, are you getting buried under Excel files and folders and things like that? Well, Excel is still the way to go, but once again, Copilot for Microsoft 365 will help to alleviate some of those challenges. So it's a common theme. I'm sure you're seeing, right? At risk of being repetitive, it's a common theme, regardless of what the trends and challenges happen to be, even with HR. Can you imagine that if you have to create a job posting, you may go to a template for that job posting, and you're just going to customize that for this latest job that needs to be posted. You're going to update the dates. You're going to change the names to protect the innocent, and then, okay, it's done. Boom, you post that thing. No matter how fast you do that, and you may be satisfied with how quickly you can do that, Copilot is going to do that faster because it's technology. It is AI embedded technology. So things to consider, and hopefully you are considering them. And likewise, along the same lines with customer service, apps that would be of value to customer service and getting their work done. Outlook for sure, sending and receiving emails, and actually Outlook would be valuable to all personnel. That may be the most used application for Microsoft 365 users. And there's a lot that you can use it for to actually draft emails for you. You can use it to reply to emails for you. Not that it's going to send the email, but it will draft the response. If you're happy with the response, then you are the one to actually hit send. And of course, it will also do summaries for you as well. So next steps. Find out or follow up with Datalink to work with you through the adoption process. If you already started the adoption process, then that's fantastic. But if not, if you've been hesitant, or maybe you haven't had the time to do that, or what have you, the fact that you're here today and you're thinking and considering where AI fits in your business, or how can I make it fit in my business, or I've decided that there's a fit, I just need to know, how to go about doing. The answer to any of those things really is to establish a process and then follow through with it. Do you need to order Copilot from Microsoft 365 for everyone in your organization? Well, that depends, right? If you have a budget to do that, then fill your boots, go ahead, and that'll be fantastic. But the alternative to that is maybe identify some key stakeholders in your organization, people who you know are committed to Microsoft 365 and use it each and every day, and allow them to be your champions as far as providing feedback. So then their learning experience you can now share with the next set of people in the organization that you order licenses for. And you can do that in a layered or a tiered approach. All right, so this first one, that's really what we're sitting through here today, but then you can follow these next steps over the course of the next period of time. Is there a question? Okay. Now, there is a limited time offer, which I could speak to, but let me turn that over to Don because there may be some additional info that he wants to share with that as well.
Well, thank you, Andrew. So now where do we go from here? You guys have heard all of this great information on Copilot and all the various use cases that Copilot can offer to your organizations. We have already fulfilled number one, that is this particular webinar, where we gave you an overview of the business benefits of Copilot for Microsoft 365. So the next step would be us getting on a Teams call with you and walking through your particular use case and what exactly you want to do with Copilot. And at that point, once we complete that call, then you would be eligible for Copilot licensing that would be free for, I believe it's up to, is it 12 months, Andrew?
Yes, you're correct.
So free, up to 10 free Copilot M365 licenses for 12 full months. And that would give you a chance to really put Copilot to work in your organization, see the returns with Copilot, to test it appropriately and make sure that when you see it work, you know where to deploy it. So that's the offer. And so I believe I'm going to turn this now over to Amanda, and she can talk about signups and other follow-on information that we're going to give to you now post webinar. Amanda?
Thanks, Don.
I wonder, Amanda, if I could share just one more point related to all of this.
Yeah, of
please.
course. And there were also a few questions in our Q&A.
Right, I saw
wanted
those as
to,
well.
okay, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
so first of all, the thing that I wanted to share here, because I did mention off the top that there are many, many co-pilots. And so here's the relevance of what I wanted to share. There is a free version, all right? Full transparency, but just work with me here. There are layers to this. The free version of Copilot is located at bing.com. So when you go to bing.com, you click on the Copilot logo, that presents you with a free version of Copilot. This is along the lines of, or in parallel with ChatGPT. No problem, web version. There are some additional tools on the right side here. Great. But would you use this for business? Not recommended whatsoever, because there are no business protections in using this version of Copilot. If you are cutting and pasting into this, your data, your sensitive data will be exposed. All right, so what do we do? Let's take a look at the next level. The next level is still, if you go to bing.com and you click on the Copilot logo, you'll notice in the right-hand corner, it says protected. And this is my email address. So I'm logged in with my work credentials. So what's the difference between this, because it looks the same, versus the free version I showed you before? Well, with this version, Microsoft has enabled commercial data protection. Why? Because I'm logged in with my work credentials. So here's what it means. Anything that I do here now, Microsoft gives the assurance that the chat interactions are not going to be saved. Microsoft has no visibility to those chat interactions, and those chat interactions aren't used to train the large language models or anything having to do with OpenAI, etc. So is this one okay for business? Well, sure, but you still have to cut from one document and paste over here to use it. Neither the free version nor this version are integrated with your Microsoft 365 apps, which is why Microsoft has developed Copilot for Microsoft 365, and I have a copy of that license, and so this is a view that you would get once you get your licenses. This is the version that we've been talking about for the past hour or so that is designed for business, that is integrated out of the box with your Microsoft 365 apps. So there's no cutting and pasting that's necessary. Everything is within a protected environment. You're good to go. And that's why this is what is recommended for business use. So
So
that
really,
is
we're
the,
talking three versions, right, Andrew? There would be the free version, the protected version, and then the business version of Copilot.
that's right. That's right. Yep, absolutely. And I bring that up because there was a question about Copilot Pro, which is yet another version, but that falls into the same bucket as the first two that we looked at. None of those are designed for business. Now, as far as the questions, let me see. Would you not customize Copilot programming to work most effective? Oh, I think I answered that already. You can customize it. An example of that would be with data retention. I kind of touched on that before. Are your chat interactions saved using the business version? Businesses want to have that feature because businesses, and maybe this applies to your own business, may have to satisfy legal or regulatory requirements where you have to retain data for a certain period of time. That is an option that you can enable with Copilot for Microsoft 365. You can set the time frame and things like that. So yes, in this version, you can save the chat interactions. And once again, that's because businesses, they vary, but they want to know that they can do that if it's necessary. Some people may find, okay. Are there any new questions? If not, Amanda, we could throw things to you.
There were a few questions. There was one asking about, can Copilot help with infrastructure as code, or is that something Microsoft will develop further soon? And then they gave an example. Can you see that one, Andrew?
I can. Who is it from?
Examples, I want a VM in Azure with 4
Mhm.
CPUs and 24 gig of RAM.
Oh,
So I think
yeah.
we're getting an IT question here. Can Copilot provide some answers around
Yes.
sizing of
Yes.
IT infrastructure?
Yes, it can, because if you ask it to write code and give it parameters as to what you want that to look like, it'll do that. So to that question, especially the example you just gave, Don, yes.
And then Anthony asked if Copilot can be helpful from an IT perspective.
Yes.
Okay. So
That was
kind of
just an
follows
example
up.
right there.
Yeah. And the last one was, are there any introductory tutorials to inform staff about the use of Copilot in the enterprise?
Yes, actually, there's a lot of material that Microsoft has provided, user-friendly materials. So yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone for taking the time out of your schedule today to tune in for our webinar. We hope you take away some valuable information on how Copilot can transform your organization. We will be following up with all attendees tomorrow with a copy of the recording, copy of the slide deck, and some additional resources for you, along with instructions on how you can get signed up for our free licenses promotion. So that'll all be within the follow-up email. You should be on the lookout for that tomorrow morning. If you stayed all the way until the end, we will be entering your name into a raffle for our Ninja Creamy Ice Cream Maker giveaway, and we'll be reaching out to the winners soon. Thanks again, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.